It's an Archaeodeath monthly review with Professor Howard Williams.
Hello Archaeodeathlings, and welcome to this monthly review of the Archaeodeath activity here at Archaeodeath Central, the Archaeoden, where we will be going through my blogs, my vlogs, my TikToks and some broader controversial issues about this month in the world of archaeology, particularly focusing on my teaching and my research. So welcome for this short video for October 2020, but also a special Halloween Archaeodeath. What on earth do I mean by that? I mean nothing, because I will be explaining why I'm the Scrooge of Halloween, and I think that we should be stopping using Halloween as an anchor around which to conduct mortuary archaeology in a public fashion, but more on that later. What I want to do in this video is to take you through what I've been up to and give you an update on all things Archaeodeath. Since my last Archaeodeath review for September, I have published a series of videos, and there's one coming next week that's part 2 of one that I just released yesterday. So I did a review of my book from 2006, Death and Memory in Early Medieval Britain. I then had my first Archaeodeath interview with Dr. Brian Costello, my newly doctored a PhD student, now doctor, and we reflect on not only his research but also what's involved doing a PhD in archaeology in the UK, and specifically his experiences of being a US based or US originating individual who came across the pond to do a piece of doctoral research, having also previously done his MA in the archaeology of death and memory here at the University of Chester. And then I'm afraid it's a bit packed out with linear monuments again, Offersdyke and Watsdyke, because I'm doing a lot of research on them, and Archaeodeath isn't simply about skeletons and graves, you know. So I've actually been sort of packing in quite a lot of videos. One on the Dee estuary in Mercian perspective. That's part of ongoing research I'm conducting about the maritime and riverine context of the great linear earthworks of the Anglo-Welsh borderlands, Offersdyke and Watsdyke. I then, for the University Archaeology Day, more on that later, I do a video about Offersdyke, Britain's greatest monument. And I have another presentation. This is for Holt Local History Society. I'm going to be talking to them in a few weeks, and I thought I'd do pre-recorded videos for them to view before the online live discussion. So I've done Watsdyke. Watsdyke's our second longest early medieval monument from the island of Britain, the third longest monument, just shorter than the Antonine frontier, the temporary Roman frontier of the early 2nd century AD, but so it's our second early medieval, our third overall longest monument, and it's really poorly understood. So actually that video is the first time I've certainly done it, and I haven't seen anyone else try to pull together all of the research that's been done on Watsdyke and present it in a video format. So that's what I've been doing for Archaeodeath video wise on in the month of October. So as I've been hoping to do once every Thursday at least, and then with a monthly review, and some months I might be doing a bit more, giving you sort of the up-to-dates on my latest research and teaching experiences. Skipping over to the Archaeodeath WordPress blog, this is how it all started in 2003 and it's now branched into YouTube. I have 15 posts, as with most months, giving you a sort of review of my perspectives on the latest sites and monuments visits I've been able to factor into the lockdown, as well as some of my other ongoing research and teaching activities. So I start with the Circle of Legends at Tintern. This was during my September video down to Chepstow to do some videoing with the BBC, which I blogged about before, and I encountered for the first time this sculptural stone circle, except for there's only one stone in the middle, the rest are wooden sculptures, at Old Tintern Railway Station, where we have here a range of sort of mythical and legendary and semi-historical, quasi-historical representations of the manifestation of the River Severn, the Sabrina. King Arthur is here, and there's me with King Arthur, and he's got Excalibur, there he is. And this is a sculpture from the year 2000, framing Arthur in relation to King Tudrig, and there he is, looking very, very gnarly, and other figures, including this is Offa apparently. So King Offa of Mercia, Offa Rex, there he is, and there's my Offa selfie, there, which I for once I look happier than the sculpture. And so I wanted to see this because it's an important piece of modern art. In fact, the only place, one of only two places where Offa is sculpted, or and on the line of Offa's Dyke. So I wanted to finally meet Offa here and Offa in context of other Geoffrey of Monmouth. There he is. Look at him, looking very Geoffrey-like, and also Eleanor of Provence. And she's got a bit of a splitting headache there. She's got a bit of a anyway. So that's my first blog post, and that sort of is about the sort of contemporary art, but about how it's articulating themes and issues relating to legendary and historical pasts, and particularly the early medieval past. I then reviewed Offa's Dyke at Tiddenham and on Tiddenham Heath and the Devil's Pulpit, where I did that filming, and then I move on and I look at a war memorial, and I've done a whole series of posts on the archaeology of war memorials, and this is my latest because it's a Chepstow's Town War Memorial, fascinating monument with an urn on top, a sort of neoclassical memorial motif, which I'm fascinated with the use of urns, which links to my interest in cremation ritual. Here we are in a non-cremating society, or at least in the late 19th and early 20th century, only a very minority cremation, and yet the motifs of cremation, symbolism of cremation is everywhere, of ashes and receptacles to contain them as a mourning symbol. And I also talk about the memorial's use of militaria. There's a captured First World War German submarine gun, sort of as an integral part of the memorial program, and so I've talked about that in my publications and my work on early 20th century war memorials, and so this is a really fascinating example. So you can see I'm sort of jumping from heritage and art and conservation and interpretation of early medieval monuments to 20th century war memorials. Another theme that you'll know about from my blog is I look at where cremations are interred in churchyards. So here at Kaya Went, I was interested in going to the churchyard and seeing how cremation practices are organised and burial for the cremated dead. And it's a fascinating sight because not only is there those small modest memorials at the east end of the church, but there's this wonderfully miniature gated little cremation patch. That's a really distinctive arrangement of adaptation of the churchyard to contain the cremated dead, and so I thought it was very, very interesting. I then jumped to a publication, part of a publication I've done recently, which I've talked about in my last post. I actually do a review of the Sebri. Sebri's got one of the concentrations, the biggest concentration in England of place names linked to the Anglo-Saxons, linked to the Kingdom of Mercia, and particularly linked to King Offa. So there's Mercian Way there, and I did a little tour. It's on the Offa's Dyke Path. There's Mercian Way, Bridget Drive, Norse Way, Denmark Drive, Maddock Road, Saxon Place, King Alfred's Road, and Norse Way, and Ormrod, the antiquarian Ormrod, and Danes Hill, and Offa's Close. So, giving you that sense of how, though the monument is difficult to see, in fact it's heavily damaged here, a consciousness is sort of brewing under the surface of the early Middle Ages in the contemporary street naming practices. Most of those street names are from the early to mid 20th century. So we inherit a landscape with the monument, we inherited a landscape with the namings associated with it. I also do a post about a lamp as a memorial feature within the Kaya Went War Memorial. So more on the materiality and symbolism of war memorials. And then I'm able to announce my next book project, or one of my next book projects, from the 5th University of Chester Student Conference. I did a blog post about working with Peter Reevell of the Portable Antiquities Scheme, and two of my former students, although one of them is still my student because he started an MA in the Archaeology of Death and Memory. So James Rain and Tash Carr are helping me as editors with Peter on the book project. So I review the previous student volumes, and we're going to be moving forward with this as our 5th book out next year. Publisher still to be confirmed. A lot of details and who's going to be in it is still to be confirmed, but we've got some really exciting papers. More on cremation, burial in the churchyard from Caerhun, and at the Manx version of the same at Bride Church. I was very delighted at that post. I got comments back from the family of someone who is interred in the churchyard, who's quite famous, Norman Wisdom OBE, and some feedback about her thoughts on my comments on the churchyard. I then have a post about cones, the plastic material culture of modern churchyards and church and cemetery environments, and so as well as reviewing my past interest in cones, as particularly black cones, funerary cones, but how cones are an integral part of lich gates, churchyards, cemeteries, and so on. But I look at particularly one, a reservation for the bishop. And then I move into fictional archaeology. And in a post, I take forward my previous sort of 50 or so posts about The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and I look at a boat's funeral in Fear the Walking Dead Season 3. I then have a post about an infant's burial gravestone, or it's a family gravestone, but the infant is the first person memorialised, a striking black marble urn from down there in Caerhun churchyard. It's a funerary monumentality. I then look at the latest publication. I'm very proud of this, working with Kieran Gleave and Pauline Clark. We have the public archaeologies of frontiers and borderlands. It's going to be out in weeks, and it's very soon. It's bringing together the 2019 student conference, which I've blogged about, and with authors who were students, as well as expert heritage practitioners and academics contributing to that book. It's going to be a really exciting book, and I talked about that in the last video about my work on that, but I actually managed to weave in a last minute extra paper about The Walking Dead and walls in The Walking Dead into that book, so I'll talk about that when it's actually out, but I wanted to flag that up. And my last two posts were Bins of Death, looking at rubbish bins in cemetery context, and back to Fear the Walking Dead Season 3, the powerful role of bones and bodies is a really good example for mortuary archaeologists of the popular culture of Native American remains and the disputes about land and rights mediated through the bones of ancestors. So I talk about how the TV show portrays it. It's not how I portray it, it's about how the TV show deals with that sensitive issue, because at least it does deal with it, and many recent shows have not. So having reviewed my various different blog posts and YouTube channels, I also want to say I'm still rocking on with TikTok. I'm doing far fewer than I usually do because I still can't work out what I can do right or wrong with TikTok. And but I have done last time I discussed it a month ago. I had a viral post that got to 46,000. It's now up to 65,300 views and 2,292 likes. I mean, we'll never experience that on Facebook and Twitter. So I mean, it's worthwhile as a venue for getting information out there. But I'm still playing with different formulas, different content, and currently doing little videos about particularly exceptional gravestones, but using them as case studies to illustrate broader issues with conservation, interpretation of funerary remains. So I'm still rattling along with TikTok too. What other reflections can I offer up for this last month? Well, teaching is going strong. I'm doing online async, in other words, pre-recorded materials and live sessions. It's a struggle for the students to step up to this interaction level. It's a struggle for me to make the connections, but I think, frankly, the students are getting more than I would normally be able to give within a 2 50-minute classes. They're getting a lot of async material to at least match that, plus online discussions, live discussions, plus opportunities to contact me via Microsoft Teams. So I've really, it's been tough, but I'm just keep going with it, and it's been hard but rewarding to get back into the undergraduate teaching and the master's teaching. I would say that there's, in terms of the broader promoting the subject of archaeology, I was pleased and proud to represent the department at the University Archaeology Day, organised by Andy Gardner and Charlotte Frearston at the University College London. But they got representatives from all departments together on teams to talk about the subject of archaeology. I think this is the first time they've done it on teams, and I think they did very well. But I would say I have reservations about us being on a panel with other colleagues trying to vie with each other about how we best present our departments. I don't think that was comfortable, and it certainly was awkward at moments seeing that play out. But all I can say is we have a great degree at Chester, and I think we have a lot to offer, at least comparable to many of the bigger and more established departments. So I felt I was able to communicate that, and I think it was a good venue for promoting the subject as a whole, and that was really what the day was about. So well done to them for that. Hey, I almost forgot. I promised to tell you why I don't think Halloween is a time for mortuary archaeology. I do think it's a time. There's never not a time for archaeology and mortuary archaeology to be in the public sphere, to be debated in a responsible and mature way, conveying archaeological information, new discoveries, new insights, new research about and the connections between our research and our teaching. 365, 24/7. Do mortuary archaeology, discuss it, debate it, but don't just do it for Halloween, and don't just treat mortuary archaeology subjects of past cultures and societies as just some pretty pictures or some spooky stories to convey in the months and the weeks leading up to the 31st of October. It's cheap, it's nasty, and it's cringeworthy, and it's incredibly nauseatingly North American. With that, it's part of the package of crap that we have to endure. We also have to endure people posting just, here's a skull, it's Halloween, and I think it's grossly distasteful. And I don't try to do this naming and shaming and calling people out on social media, but I would say that 5 years ago I wrote this: a skull is for life, not just for Halloween, because I got to a point 5 years ago, and I would say I haven't changed my mind, that I think it's just too much. Yeah, share stories. Someone asked me yesterday, what do you think about this report about books covered in human skin? And it was a piece of journalism based on a new publication linked to a death positive scholar who is working on that material. My immediate response, I didn't say anything because I have no problem with the research. I think it's an important piece of research to look at this very disturbing and ghoulish topic. I think it's fine that this is being promoted in social media, because if anything that engages people in the diversity of responses and attitudes and the ethical misconduct of professionals past and present about human remains is, I think, a key and interesting story. It engages people, but not for Halloween. It's not. If whether you think Halloween has a spiritual significance, for me it has zero significance, or whether you just see it as a public holiday, this is not something that should be done to coincide with Halloween, in my view. You're welcome to disagree with me, but I think that it's cheap and nasty, and it's tawdry, and I think we should be doing everything we can to engage people in mortuary archaeology, but not just for a one sort of lead up event of the year. And so that's my view, and you're welcome to disagree with it. There's personal circumstances I go through in my blog post. There's some academic issues I have, and you're welcome to read that and comment on it, or get back to me on this video and tell me a different take. But that's what I wanted to say. So when I said at the beginning this is my Halloween special, it's not my Halloween special, because bar humbug Halloween. There, I've said it. So going back to my original point, take care of yourself, but don't do skulls all year round. Let's engage with death, celebrate death in a sense, and those we've lost and we loved, and past cultures and their variety and diversity of mortuary practices, but don't make it a freaky little tagline for a Halloween piece of journalism or a Halloween social media post. You do better, as they say in America. If anyone's interested, remember I'm organising a digital death Public Archaeology is a digital mortuary archaeology conference on Thursday the 28th of January 2020. So that'll be on Teams, but open to everybody, and I'll put in links through my various social media outlets, including Twitter and Facebook, and also, and it's going to be the 6th University of Chester Archaeology Student Conference, with students presenting, but I've got some really exciting keynote presenters lined up for that event. And I'd like to wrap up by talking about COVID and the lockdowns. Now, the lockdowns have been something that I'm observing on, I continue to keep observing on as an archaeologist, looking at how material culture and landscapes are being shifting in their use in a more abstract academic sense. It's a fascinating and disturbing phenomenon to see the uses of signs to manage, to warn, to guide, to instruct, and also the dereliction of certain places, the abandonment of closure of shops, the adaptation of spaces during the long lockdown. But also I've been trying to comment in a kind way about the fact that, of course, this is affecting students and it's affecting colleagues, and we're in lockdown again in Wales, and it's a real struggle. And I tried to articulate that on social media and attracted all manner of trolls telling me that asking people to stay safe, or trying to be supportive, suggests. The suggestion was I was giving a validation and I'm part of the problem in supporting lockdowns. Well, I'm afraid whether it's via lockdowns or other mechanisms, we've got to try our very hardest as a society to be responsible. And in a university context, I've been trying my best to support my students in very challenging circumstances with continuing their learning. It's not my fault. I'm not in charge of the government. I'm not in charge of Twitter. But I will continue to make my voice and my opinions clear on these matters, because they affect us all. They affect me professionally. They affect me personally. And I think we all need to be part of the conversation. Also, I would say it relates very much to attitudes to death and memorialisation, and I've been continuing to observe more memorial aspects of our COVID lockdown landscapes, including how COVID snakes, these painted pebbles, have been adapted and moved around. And I've also, of course, I have a manifestation on Offa's Dyke when Professor Mark Drakeford, of the First Minister of the Senedd, instigated a 2-week sort of firebreaker lockdown in Wales. Apparently this was to a socialist fantasy to try and a war on business, apparently. And now Boris Johnson looks like he's going to be going down the same route, and Wales looks like it was ahead of the game of what was going to happen anyway. Anyway, all I can say is that Offa's Dyke is featuring in the public discourse again. The 14th of October, it was trending on Twitter, Offa's Dyke, with people commenting on, most of them jokes, about rebuilding Offa's Dyke and manning Offa's Dyke to protect Wales against the English, or derogatory comments by the English about the Welsh and their treatment of the lockdown landscapes, as opposed to the English freedom, which anyway. My point is that on a personal, professional, and in terms of research, the lockdown is having a manifold effect, as well as stopping me doing my public engagement as best as I can on linear monuments and mortuary archaeology in the landscape. So it's a frustrating time. So I will, at the risk of annoying people, I simply have to repeat: stay safe, do your best to be responsible. Whatever the rules are, try to follow them, not as a mindless sheep, but because it's the right and the good thing to do. Mask up, stay safe, keep away from other people, wash your hands, do all the things that you're necessary to do, because it is about trying to save lives. And it's not just about old people, it's about us all and our loved ones. So, with that attempt to be kind message, which will probably be interpreted as some libtard snowflake attempt to control your life. No, I'm not. But as a mortuary archaeologist, I can tell you, we see pandemics in the past. We see you may not be seeing the corpses, you may not be seeing the graves, you may not be witnessing yourself direct first hand what a pandemic is doing now to thousands of people, of excess deaths. But archaeologically, we looking back to the past, we can see the material traces of much more severe but still a high death toll pandemics. And this is not a joke, this isn't a fraud, this isn't a made up scenario. We're living in a very difficult time, and as an archaeologist, I'm both interested in it and aware of how it's affecting us all. So stay safe, people, and I hope to see you in a month's time for another roundup, and I've got some more exciting videos planned in coming weeks. Take care.
For relaxing times, make it Archaeodeath time.